Welcome to Stanislaus Football Weekly, and now for your hosts, Joe Cortez and Brian Vanderbeek.
Hi, welcome to the show. I am indeed Joe Cortez. I'm joined by Ron Agostini, in for Brian Vanderbeek. Good to have you back, Ron.
I'm here, pinch hitting again.
I trust your Thanksgiving was nice and relaxing?
Yeah, it was. I had a little 49er assignment there on Thanksgiving Day.
That's right.
So we hit the family scene and a little 49ers that day. So it was a good day.
Very good, very good. Well, listen, we're getting
Better
down...
day than the 49ers had.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here in Stanislaus District football. We've got one team active this week, and we've got one team parked waiting to find out who it'll play in the NorCal final, that being Central Catholic. Central Catholic, well, we shouldn't say they're in the NorCal final. The 10 section commissioners have to vote on that, but they look like a lock to get in.
Man, they've won 2 straight state titles, and they're rolling again. I kind of like the way they're looking right now.
And of course, they're number 1 in Cal High Sports' Division 4 NorCal Bowl poll. That's a mouthful.
Yes, it is.
But they're number 1, followed by McClymonds of Oakland, the team that Central Catholic has faced the past 2 years. Even played them in the regular season last year. And then Capital Christian, the team that defeated Modesto Christian, is ranked number 3 in that poll. Hey, let's take a look back before anything else at that Sonora Central Catholic D4 section final.
Yes, that was a game you did, right?
That was a game I staffed. It was the first time I had the opportunity to see the Wildcats play. You saw them play week 0, I believe?
Yes, it was the week 0 game against Oakdale, and Oakdale jumped up to a 28-0 lead that night at halftime. Sonora was competitive in the second half, 28-14.
You know, I talked to Coach Brian Craig in Lodi at the Sac Joaquin Section Championship Banquet, and he said that second half was really kind of a crucial point for his team. You know, he went into the locker room and said, "Hey, are we just going to do this just because it's Oakdale? It's okay." They came out a different team. And
no, they did. That was definitely a different second half. They belonged on the field with Oakdale in that second half. Yes.
Well, they proved they belonged on the field with Central Catholic. They lost. Sonora did 42-35. Very, very close game. I came away very impressed with Sonora. Billy Kirillik, their big fullback, middle linebacker. Yeah. What a player.
Pretty good family there of athletes.
He is, of course, the nephew of Central Catholic coach Roger Canepa, as is linebacker Bradley Canepa. Really good player, only a sophomore. So we're going to be seeing a lot more of him.
Canepa's related to everyone.
Up there he is,
yes,
yeah. But, you know, running back Bryce Sanguinetti, the receiver Cale Waring, quarterback Sam Page, just a lot of talent on the field that night. A really good team. Each team was kind of holding serve back and forth, 7-0, 7-7, 14-7, 14-14. And Central was able to get a couple of more stops than Sonora, and then they held on for a 42-35 win. Junior running back Justin Rice did it again, went over 200 yards. He has just been a real find for Central Catholic. You know, he was kind of the understudy, I think, when the year began to Montel Bland.
Correct.
And since then, he's rushed for over 1,700 yards.
What a season, huh?
What a season. He is a fantastic player. Averages a touchdown about every 5 carries.
That's a lot. I just can't get over the fact, Joe, that Central Catholic has played like 45 varsity football games in the last 3 years.
Not like 45. They've played 45.
45. That's 4 seasons packed into 3.
Probably going to have a 46th and then maybe a 47th. That's a lot of football for high school kids.
That's a lot.
A lot. There's a handful of kids on that team that will be playing in their 3rd NorCal championship game, or should be.
They were call-ups, right, Joe?
Yeah.
As sophomores?
Some of them were call-ups, yes. Jared Rice will be playing in his 3rd. A.J. Contreras, Miguel Hernandez, and Nick Navarro, the outstanding cornerback, would be playing in his 3rd. Right. But yeah, he had an Achilles injury and he was done for the season pretty early this year. And then Khalil Dillard, who will be playing in a potential NorCal game, was injured last year.
But this is a program that is comfortable doing this.
Right.
And that's important.
Absolutely. And even though you point out...
These elongated seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And you point out that these guys were call-ups. They were still practicing weeks 1 through 10 at the
Yes.
JV level, and then 11 through 16.
Yeah, it's not like they took a shortcut here.
No.
They were playing.
It was a long
practicing.
season, yeah.
These are long high school seasons for these young men.
Absolutely.
And then they, their record speaks for itself.
Well, the other game we had last week, Ron, was Modesto Christian versus Capital Christian.
Brian Vanderbeek covered that game.
Brian Vanderbeek, our man at the scene this week, and as you know, these two teams met in week 1. It was Capital Christian's second game of the season. It was Modesto Christian's first, back when they met on September 5. And Capital Christian won that game 23-22. Really close affair, obviously. There was a goal line stand. You remember how that worked out?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah. I think Modesto Christian stopped them at the goal line and held on to their lead, but then fumbled the ball on the 1, and Capital Christian had another chance in the inside the 10 and took advantage of it this time for a 23-22 win. So we expected a close final, and we got that. Yeah.
These teams are very close.
Absolutely.
Obviously.
Absolutely.
They proved that.
Modesto Christian had the ball inside the 10-yard line. Is that correct?
Yes, at the 6, I believe.
At the 6.
6 yards short.
Couldn't punch it in. They end up losing by a touchdown. Just shows you
So close.
that's about the margin between these two teams right
So
there.
close.
It's really close. So Capital Christian finishes the season 12-0, or 13-0 rather. Modesto Christian finishes 11-2.
What a season for Modesto Christian, huh, Joe?
Oh man,
Mike Parsons comes back, coaches the team. Boy, talk about the importance of a good, motivating head coach, especially when Modesto Christian's numbers were down this year.
Yeah.
I'm sure he caught a couple breaks keeping linemen healthy during that season, but they just held together in playing with some adversity,
Sure.
with few numbers. But Parsons has coached Modesto Christian to a state title. He's coached Clovis West to a Central Section title. The man can coach.
He can coach a little.
He can coach a little bit.
And their numbers this year kind of fluctuated between I think a low of 17, maybe it was 18 to about 20 players. It's hard to practice.
No.
It
is.
It makes it challenging.
That I've talked to coaches in the past. Practice is really the challenge when you're low in numbers like that. Sometimes you have to split the field in half and just play half your side against half of the defense's side.
Yeah.
And
Brian Vanderbeek wrote a story this week about how difficult it is to practice with limited players, and how Modesto Christian uses a lot of barrels and blocking dummies to substitute for live bodies.
You have to when you're below 20 players, Joe.
But, though they only have 18, 19 players, those 18, 19 players can really play.
They definitely can, Joe. Corey Mora, fine lineman for them, was named Offensive Player of the Year in the TVL. And Connor Dowd, middle linebacker, was the Defensive Player of the Year.
Outstanding
in the TVL. Outstanding players. Noted that neither one of them are quarterback, wide receivers, running backs. They're the guts of your team.
Absolutely.
And that's what they need. That's what Modesto Christian needed to get through this season.
Absolutely. So Modesto Christian finishes the year, like we said, with an 11-2 record. And in the Northern California D4 bowl poll, we've got Central, McClymonds, and Capital Christian. Central Catholic seems to be a lock. As we said, McClymonds, we've got some trouble there. McClymonds has used an ineligible quarterback, or so it's alleged. That is in the appeal process. We are expecting a decision. I'm hearing that it's going to be December 5th. If they overturn the suspension, McClymonds would likely be back for a third consecutive crack against Central Catholic. If the forfeits are upheld, the likely scenario has Capital Christian gaining the votes from the selection committee, and that would be a CC final, NorCal final.
How about that? I'm sure McClymonds wouldn't mind another shot at Central.
Well, the ineligible player they use is their quarterback, Kevin Davidson. He's a really good quarterback.
He's really good. I read about him.
He transferred in from San Ramon Valley. Apparently, he didn't actually move into the district, or that's the allegation, and that's all what the appeal deals with. So we'll find out soon who Central plays. And I know Roger Canepa is just chomping at the bit to find out. He wants to know, and he wants to start cracking down game film, and
he wants to prep.
And he wants to get going. Now, we only have one game this week, and that is Oakdale. They advanced to the Sac Joaquin Section Division III final by virtue of its 41-14 win over Rio Linda.
Pretty dominating.
Pretty
for
dominating.
A while now for Oakdale.
Hey, for a while. And we figured it out in the newsroom.
Yes.
The last 4 games, Oakdale High has rushed for a combined 2,000 yards.
To the yard.
To the yard.
To the yard.
439 against Central Catholic, 590 in the playoff opener against Pacheco, 439 again against Vista del Lago. You covered that game?
I did that game.
And 532 last week against Rio Linda.
That's a lot of wing T.
That is a lot of Frankie Trent, Darius Nelson, Brock Whiting, and company there. So they are on a roll. They will play another wing T team this week, in Inderkum High of Sacramento, the #1 playoff seed in the Division III bracket. Inderkum is 12-1.
Didn't you say they run their wing T a little bit different than Oakdale?
Well, that's what Trent Merzon told me. I talked to Trent this afternoon, and he said, they do run the wing T, and they kind of have a triple threat backfield. And Larry Hardy, who is a phenomenal two-way player for them, Austin Thurman and Jimmy Johnson are the other 2 running backs. They have a triple threat backfield, just like Oakdale, but they look to score in one play, whereas Oakdale wants to lean on you and grind on you and sweat on you and tire you out.
Run that shell game on you.
Run that game of 3-card monte, and they do it obviously with 2,000 yards in the last month. They do it very well. So they are similar but different as well. And Inderkum's lone loss this season came to Monterey Trail, a team that beat Merced in the Division I playoffs. They missed a field goal at the end of the game, a 58-yard field goal attempt. Fell just short.
Close.
It would have given them the win. They lose 29-27. However, they did not have their standout two-way star, Larry Hardy, in that game. So probably made a big difference there. They're that close to being undefeated, but we'll see what happens on Saturday at the Great Bowl in Lodi, 7 p.m. kickoff there.
They have an outstanding linebacker, don't they?
Inderkum does.
Yes, Inderkum.
Yes, Inderkum has a linebacker named, I'm going to give this a try, Nuumotu Falu.
Pronounce those vowels. Yes.
You got to hit him hard. I'm told people look to run away from this guy. Inderkum likes to move him around, get him into the action. I anticipate Mr. Falu getting a big dose of Frankie Trent this Saturday night.
I don't imagine Oakdale's going to change their game plan a whole lot for this game.
I would bet they. Yes. I would bet they don't. Yes.
Here comes those powers and traps and counters that we know.
Absolutely. Now, in some quarters, this game is being referred to as the springboard into the NorCal final. It's not quite that easy. If you look at the poll in Division III, Clayton Valley is 1. Concord is number 2. They play this weekend for the North Coast section final. Loser goes home.
Right.
Winner is probably in the bowl game.
The winner should advance.
It's likely. They've got a great case there. Number 3 is Inderkum. If Inderkum wins, it's got a good shot to be the number 2 team in that bowl game. However, already wrapped up with their northern section final victory last week is Enterprise. And if that name sounds familiar, does it?
Yeah.
They were there last year.
They were there last year, right?
Against Manteca High.
In a dramatic game.
Eked out a win against the Buffaloes. They are the defending NorCal champs. They would have a case, hey, we should be allowed to come back and defend our title.
So it's pretty much cut and dry for Clayton Valley versus Concord.
Yeah, winner's pretty much in.
Yeah, not so cut and dry for Oakdale.
No, if Oakdale gets the victory Saturday, they would obviously eliminate Inderkum. You have to win a section title to be eligible for a bowl game. Inderkum would be eliminated, and then it would basically come down to who do you like, Enterprise or Oakdale?
And that comes down to a meeting.
Both teams have great cases, and it'll come down to the vote of the 10 section commissioners in this state. So
I'd love to attend one of those meetings.
everybody would love to
Yeah.
attend one of those meetings, but
I'd
it's
like to sit
it's a closed door deal.
I think we can imagine what goes on, but it'd be kind
Well,
of
there's
fun
some
to be
horse
there.
trading.
Oh, for
There's some
sure.
horse trading going in.
Yeah.
If you vote for this team,
Yeah.
I'll vote for this team.
Yeah.
And
Escalon has worked their way through a few of those meetings in
well,
the past.
I would imagine they look at the lineup and say, hey, look, we've got 3 other Sac Joaquin section teams who could. Who could make this game. Maybe we should give this one to the northern section. I would imagine there's wheeling and dealing that occurs like that. But both these teams have really strong cases. But that's cart before the horse.
Right.
We'll find out which one
Oakdale
gets
has
to make that case.
Oakdale has to do some winning first here.
That's right.
Yeah.
With that, why don't we make our pick? Who do
Okay.
you like in the Division III Sac Joaquin section final?
I have no reason not to pick Oakdale. I think if they play a clean game and they get their wing tee rolling, I think they're going to win the game. This Oakdale team is a little bigger than past Oakdale teams,
Right.
and I think they're better suited for the long haul than their previous teams, including the one that did get to the state final 2 years ago. I kind of like Oakdale. They're coming on. They're coming on. Week 13, week 14, and if your team's still improving, that's a plus.
Absolutely. And that's why I like Oakdale. 2,000 yards in the last 4 weeks. What does that tell you? That's about 500 yards a game. That's tough to beat.
They're rolling.
I don't care who you are. That's tough to beat.
Yeah.
And Oakdale runs that wing tee to perfection.
Yeah.
They do what they do, and they do it well.
Yeah. I think they'll have to play clean, though. I don't think they can put the ball on the ground.
Well, sure. And Coach Merzon said they're going to have to tackle. They're going to have to figure out a way to stop these big play guys. But boy, I saw Oakdale do it against Central Catholic for the most part. There were a couple of long runs against Oakdale, but for the most part, they shut down Central. And I think they'll do it Saturday night at the Great Bowl by about a touchdown.
Looking forward to it.
We are getting down to the nitty-gritty, Ron. After this game, we may have 2 games left. Or 2 NorCal games and then maybe 2 state games, but that's about it. 4 games max is after Saturday night. 4 games max is all we can have.
Wasn't it a couple of weeks ago we were running through the list of 40 games?
Oh my gosh!
And now we're down to 1.
Seems like 15 minutes ago.
It seems that way, pretty fast.
Well, that's it for another edition of Stanislaus Football Weekly. Be sure to join us here next week when we rehash Saturday's game. And as our friend Brian Vanderbeek likes to say, oh, come on, Ron.
I don't know what he says.
Go out and enjoy some high school football.